Hello and welcome to the 20th episode of the magazine Monologues. Today's article is going to be coming from the May 2021 edition of Scientific American. It is titled Journey into the Americas by Jennifer Raff, who is an anthropological geneticist. Yes, an anthropological geneticist at the University of Kansas. So I'm going to miss a lot of numbers in the article, mostly because there are a lot of numbers in the article and associated charts and diagrams. So I'm going to speak more in broad overviews. If you want to look up the actual specific years or dates or whatever in question, I'm going to leave that to you and Google. So the article discusses the fact that there is uncertainty in the how and when humans populated the American continents. Broadly speaking, there are three ideas. Idea number one, and I believe that this article posits that for the first two ideas, and the third idea, you'll preface the third idea is a fringe idea, so it's not as seriously taken, but for the first two ideas, I believe the article posits that the first initial human migration into the Americas was the land bridge between what is today Eastern Russia and Alaska, and then there are two ideas from that. Although they didn't talk in the article about Polynesian settlings, which, to be fair, it was much, much later than what they are discussing here in this article. But I wouldn't be surprised if there were parts of the American continents that were not populated until there was Polynesian migration. But that is not even addressed in this article at all. So, three scenarios. Scenario one is they cross the land bridge, and then there would have been something called the ice-free corridor, which they have a picture, and it looks like it would have been two glaciers. Well, one super glacier started to melt and turned into two glaciers, and there would be a land corridor in what is roughly modern-day British Columbia, connecting Alaska to North America and then on down towards Central and South America. This is the excluding, between the two, the fringe third one I'm going to discuss, you'll understand why it's a fringe idea soon, but between the two main ideas, that is the less likely idea for the following reason. These numbers I will get right because I did check these numbers shortly, or in the near immediate past. I don't actually know what adverb I should use there. But the ice-free corridor is not believed, based on scientific and archaeological evidence and paleontological evidence and whatever, to have been plant and animal free until 12,600 years ago, and the first human artifacts and or evidence is not seen in the ice-free corridor until 12,400 years ago. And you might wonder, how does that have to do anything? Basically in the US as well as Central and parts of South America, there are archaeological pieces of evidence that date to anywhere from 14 to 15,000 years ago, give or take a little bit on those numbers, but they are earlier than the 12,400 date of the human evidence in the ice-free corridor. All that to say is it is highly, highly unlikely that a group of humans would have migrated. When I say humans, by the way, I am talking Homo sapiens in this case. A group of humans would have migrated through the ice-free corridor, which I've actually done the drive where the ice-free corridor is. You know, it's 1,000 miles. Like it's highly, highly unlikely that they would have migrated from Alaska down through the ice-free corridor into what modern-day United States and not left an archaeological footprint. It's highly unlikely. So scenario one, less likely. Possible, but less likely. Because again, history isn't perfect, especially history before the written word and before documents. I mean, documents are not perfect either, let's be clear. But when you're kind of just, I don't want to say guessing, but when you are relying on specific prehistoric events to have happened in specific ways that the human evidence gets preserved, it's not a perfect system, but it is unlikely, especially over such a large swath of land. Now, scenario 2 is the more likely scenario. They being the humans, would have come across the land bridge and then used the western coast to migrate down. This is more widely accepted because A, the humans wouldn't have had to have waited 2,000 or 3,000 years in Alaska for the ice bridge to open up and then go down that. B, as I discussed, there is archaeological evidence that humans were in North Central South America 14,000, 15,000 years ago before the ice-free corridor ever opened up. C, it is faster. So if humans arrived in Alaska, I'm going to make these numbers up just for example's sake. I Google them if you want to know the specifics. If humans arrived in modern-day Alaska 15,000 years ago, they could have gotten in canoes and boats and within a couple hundred years been down to California. I mean, easily. A couple hundred years might have even taken too long. But again, when we are doing traveling, we know California's below Alaska. We know where the coasts are, like all of that, right? Ancient humans would have probably stopped periodically, probably potentially for generations, to hunt and gather and fish and live their lives, and maybe an explorer continues on. It would not have been just a hop in a boat in Alaska, go to California. Oh, that only takes 21 days, right? No, I'm assuming here, they didn't actually really explicitly discuss this fact, but I'm assuming that the ancient peoples would have traveled by boat for a week, maybe. I mean, even that seems a little bit long, right? Because you want to be able to be within a safety bubble of where you know there is food and water and shelter and family, etc. Let's say a week, and then they'd settle, and then a couple generations later, maybe they do it again, and that kind of thing. But that is the more likely because, again, it gives the faster route along through the water. It doesn't have this weird abnormality of no archaeological evidence in the ice-free corridor, but there is archaeological evidence in the lower 48 magically if you take the ice-free corridor method. Using the boat method, it makes sense, right? Because they would have been there much, much faster. And then there was a C, but I forgot. Those are the two main points. Sorry, I got a headache out of somewhere. But yeah, so I got off track. I gotta think for 1 second. I had a weird blood vessel throb thing in my head. Yes, so the third scenario is the fringe scenario. The fringe scenario is there is a small group of scholars. They didn't say who the scholars were. I have no idea. Not a clue. So there's a fringe idea of a small group of scholars who think that the first humans were not Homo sapiens that populated the Americas, but actually Homo erectus 130,000 years ago. It is believed that Homo sapiens left Africa in 70 to 80,000 years ago, so significantly before Homo sapiens even left Africa. A small group of scholars are saying that Homo erectus came in and populated North America. They have very loose evidence for that. They say that there's a mastodon site in California which shows signs of human tool usage from 130,000 years ago, but the site was discovered during a road construction project, and most scholars think that the damage / markings seen on the mastodon bones are probably the result of the road construction itself, just because it would be, as far as human history goes, it would be a wild divergence from the idea that North and South America were more or less uninhabited by humans until about 14,000 years ago. Again, humans being Homo sapien, Homo erectus, Homo whatever. So that's the fringe idea. The article does also talk about the fact that there's a lot of uncertainty here because, A, it was all before the written record. Like I said earlier, you're just kind of hoping for these conditions. You're hoping for events to happen in conditions in which the evidence gets preserved. B, so this is an anthropological geneticist writing this. So she throws in some genetic evidence, which I think I'm not a geneticist, I don't really know any of this stuff, but I think is a little bit wild. And here was one of the pieces. There's some sort of genetic marker or genetic thing. Again, don't quote me on those specifics. But there's a 40,000-year-old cave in Tianyu, China, I believe they said. The Aboriginal peoples in Australia And then there are specific Aboriginal groups in the Amazon jungle who all bear a distinctive marker. This marker is not found North America west of the Andes for the Amazon jungle or just other places. Quick geography lesson. You can look it up. The Amazon jungle is east of the Andes Mountains. So it goes Amazon jungle, Andes Mountains, Pacific Ocean, more or less. It is a little bit wild that there is a genetic marker found in the Amazon jungle, but not on the Pacific side of the Andes, because the idea is that the Amazonian tribes would have come in over the Andes Mountains and then populated. So Pacific, Andes down, or potentially down from the north. Either way, nothing surrounding the Amazonian indigenous tribes have this marker. Australian Aboriginals do, and then a 40,000-year-old skeleton in Tianyu, China has it. I think that's mind-blowing. That's just another one of those historical mysteries or whatever, right? That's another thing. If you watched the last video, I watch yacht videos on YouTube. Basically the only other thing I really watch on YouTube is like unexplained mysteries or whatever. Most of those are my guilty pleasure of like Bigfoot or dinosaurs in the Congo or whatever, things like that, right? Like just things that I like to watch for entertainment's sake. This is an actual historical mystery of how in the world did these people get to the Amazon and somehow not go from the Andes or the north? Like, did they come across the Atlantic? Like, it seems insane, right? So those were A and B for the reasons that there's uncertainty, and then C is just the fact that, well, I guess I covered C and A. C I was going to say is the fact that it was a long time ago, but I talked about it with the pre-written history. They do tie a lot of this archaeological evidence to something called the Clovis Spearhead. The Clovis Spearhead was found in a New Mexico site, I believe, it wasn't found 14,000 years ago. It was dated 14,000 years ago. There is a, archaeological arc that you can see. Swan Point is a place in Alaska, which is an archaeological site. They have spearheads that are, close to the Clovis model of the spearhead. When I say Clovis spearhead, I mean the, stereotypical spearhead that you think. The Swan Point one is a little bit different. It's like a spearhead with just a little bit different on one side, and that is the link to a Siberian culture. I forgot the name now off the top of my head. It was not something I've ever heard of. It's like Dukai or Duke or something. It's a D, that's all I know. Siberian culture, which use something that looks similar to Swan Point. Swan Point's similar to Clovis, and so it's just this arc of culture across human history. I liked the article. I'll admit, like I said, YouTube stuff, I like all sorts of historical mysteries, especially things like this where it's just, you have to piece together based on fragments of information, and you can tell a cool and interesting story. I like it. I've liked the majority of Scientific American articles so far. It seems in each month they have an astronomy physics one. Again, I've only had 2 or 3 months of magazines here. They have an astronomy physics one, a health one, and then a bunch of just kind of random at that point. Math, I read a very cool math one, which I'm not going to talk about on the magazine monologues because it just wouldn't translate well without some of the diagrams that they used. Math, this is anthropology, you've got all sorts of fields, marine biology, whatever. I think there's a marine one in this. I will likely not do it in here because I did the ocean issue from National Geographic. But yeah, all that to say is I've enjoyed Scientific American quite a bit. I have gotten 7 or 8 of my magazines. I still have another 12 or something, 7 or 8, no, 11 or 10 that have to come in. So far, Scientific American, Economist, and probably Foreign Affairs are my top. Foreign Affairs is just longer, deeper reads. It's the reason I don't do it as much, because it's only I can't remember if it's once a quarter or once every 2 months, but either way, it's not a monthly magazine. Economist is weekly, Scientific American is monthly, Foreign Affairs is that weird quarterly, bi-monthly situation. Yeah, so the next one, I don't know what my next article will be from. That is to be determined, but I will see you in episode 21. Thank you.